Today is New Year's Day. In an important sense, it's not a big deal. It's just a arbitrary shift in the counting system we use. But because of the cultural form of the calendar that we use, it is felt to be a time of threshold transition. The month January is named after the Roman god Janus, who is the two-headed god of thresholds, looking both forward and backward. This is what we have a tendency to do at this time of year. As one old year passes, a new year begins, we reflect backwards on our life so far and look forward into what is to come. The accumulation of our experiences and our actions in the past make up our karma. Every volitional action that we do is a karma, and it has effect. And the effects are experienced in the times to come. The present moment is held as a very fine balancing point between past and future. The Tibetans have a contemplation they call the yoga of the three times, contemplating the past as unreal because it has ceased to exist, contemplating the future as unreal because it is not yet manifest, and contemplating the present as unreal because it cannot be pinned down. As soon as you look at it, it slips into the past. It's an idea of a infinitesimal vanishing point of present moment. The idea of time is a slippery one, a mysterious one. There was a school of Buddhism, the Sarvastivada. The name means all exists. And one of the doctrines they held was that past, present, and future all exist. So this is kind of the opposite of the Tibetan contemplation, the idea being that here, that time is an illusion derived from the way our minds work, that we only perceive this one moment at a time out of a total field of reality. These are speculative ideas, philosophical ideas on the nature of time. But as a practical application, the only reality from not from a deep metaphysical perspective, but from an immediate practical perspective, the only reality is the present moment. The present moment is all that we have. The past is done and gone, and the future is unfixed, undetermined, unreal. All we really experience is present moment. It's also related to this idea from the perspective of the Buddhist teaching of not self, of anatta, that this is the central teaching of Buddhism, that there's no essential real self-existent entity anywhere. And applied to the individual, it means there's no, the idea of a self-entity is unreal, it's an illusion. And if we look at how this works with the dimension of time, we can see that the idea of a self doesn't exist in the present moment. Whenever a sense of self is experienced, it's always in reference to the time dimension, either past or future. when we think of defining ourself, it's often done in terms of the past. If someone asks you who you are, you're likely to give them a capsule life history. Where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school, what jobs you've had. This is your life history, is your resume of existence. Defines who you are. Or the other way of becoming caught up in a self idea is to project into the future. And we have ourself tied up in our hopes and wishes, and also our fears and anxieties about the future. But if we bring it down to just the present moment, all there is consciousness rising to an object. There's just a process, a very simple, immediate, clear knowing. And there's no room in there for a self-reference. There's just a process of consciousness rising to an object in the present moment. So this is the immediate reality, is the present moment. But as framing concepts, past and future have their important uses. The term in English, mindfulness, is a translation of the Pali sati, which literally means is an aspect of memory. It was translated in some old English translations as recollectedness, and I think that's actually better. It's remembering to be present. And in a few places where the Buddha defines the meaning of sati, he says, he who has sati easily remembers what was done and said long ago. So it is tied up with the quality of memory. One who is mindful is one who remembers. And it's said of some extraordinary beings like the Buddha, when he came into his last human birth, that he descended mindfully into the womb. And that's explained in the commentaries as having a recollection of his previous existence. Having memory of past lives is an aspect of sati, of mindfulness, developed to a high degree. This is to be clearly distinguished from the speculation about the past that the Buddha listed as one of the kind of ways in which the mind can get lost in wondering, where was I in the past, who was I in the past. This is a fruitless speculation. Everything that has been thought, said, and done in the past leaves karmic traces that are experienced in the present. That who we are in the present moment is a result of all this accumulation. And this is exactly the point, the vanishing point between past and future of present moment. And the present moment also opens up into the future. That how we use the present moment determines the unfolding of future moments. A good way to think of it is like playing cards. You're playing bridge or poker or any card game. You're dealt a hand of cards. This is your karma from the past. And there's nothing you can do about that in the present moment. That's done and fixed, and here's what you've got. And it's no use lamenting about it. It's just, this is what you've got. But then how you play the hand is the skill for the future, determining how it unfolds into the future. I suppose where the analogy breaks down is that in the game of life, as opposed to a game of whist or euchre, if you play your hand skillfully, then the next round you'll be dealt a better hand to play with. You know? There is no randomness in the Buddhist philosophy. Everything is as a result of past causes and conditions. There's one of the contemplations that the Buddha said should be done often is the days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? What are you doing with the present moment? The karma we make in the present moment determines the unfolding of what happens in the future, what we will experience in this life and in lives to come. Another contemplation that the Buddha brought up often is the vast extent of time that we're situated in. The idea of samsara is the endless turning. The conditioned world is ultimately futile, that one is endlessly wandering. And there's a whole series of very powerful images that the Buddha brings up to give us a sense of the vastness of time in which we're situated. He says that if all the bones that you've left behind in your previous lifetimes could be piled together in a heap, they would be higher than the Himalaya mountains. If all the blood that you've shed could be gathered together, it would be more volume than the great ocean. And there's a whole series of these images like this. And at the end of each image, he says, it should be enough. The way it's phrased in the Pali is very strong. It's like, alang is enough, and it sort of stands on its own as a sentence. It's like, enough. You should think enough. And it should be enough to arouse in the mind disenchantment, dispassion, and cessation and release. Nibbida, Viraga, and Nirodha, Vimutti. So the idea of this contemplation is to take away the fascination with the conditioned world. It's enough. I've done this so many times in the past. I've left so many corpses behind. And what's the ultimate meaning of it? Have done with filling the cemeteries. Is what keeps beings endlessly wandering, endlessly taking form and carrying on with their struggles and with their joys and sorrows is desire, is a craving for experience, craving for sense pleasure, the craving for existence. Beings come into form to satisfy craving. And the mind in each moment is chasing after objects. When it's all said and done and you get down to the most rudimentary level of experience, it's mind craving an object, taking an object, being dissatisfied with the object, and then taking a next object. This is the basic building block of samsaric existence, of conditioned existence. The process of vipassana, of insight meditation, is to try and make that fully conscious so that the process can be disengaged from, to take away to break the spell, to take away the enchantment of being endlessly caught in this loop. This is the basic driving engine of the whole conditioned universe, of the whole world of experience, this mind taking an object. This process is situated in time in that it's experienced linearly, that there's an object and mind craving an object, taking an object, and that experience conditions the next moment, which repeats the process with another object, a similar object or a different object. And this is experienced as a linear sequence. You can think of it like a row of dominoes. One conditions the other, they all fall down. And the nature and quality of the objects that are presented to consciousness is determined by multiple factors, one of which is the past karma of the being, the actions done in the past. In each moment of consciousness, there is that which is presented from the past. There's the hand dealt, and there's also an aspect that's called the jhana moment, or the active moment, when the mind makes a decision. It goes this way or that. And this determines, this is where karma is made, and at this momentary mind moment level, that the mind is constantly reaching a branch point and going this way or that. And it takes a considerable effort, a certain amount of energy to change direction. One of the aspects of karma is habitual karma, that we dig ourselves a rut, that from repeatedly making the same choices, doing the same thing with the mind and the body, and becomes path of least resistance is to continue doing the same thing. The image that Ajahn Chah used to illustrate this is the ox cart going between two villages. In older times in Thailand, before motorized transport was common, the way that people got around was with a cart pulled by a water buffalo. And if you're going on a track between two villages that was frequently used, the wheels of all the carts would dig ruts, and you could sit in your cart and go to sleep, and the water buffalo would just keep plodding along around the corners and up the hills and down, and wouldn't need any guidance because he's just taking the path of least resistance. But if you wanted to take a route that was not frequented very often, that would take effort. You'd have to stop the cart, unhitch the buffalo, drag the cart out of the ditch, turn it around, then go chase your buffalo down who's wandered off, drag him back, tie him up, and stay awake to make sure he kept in the right direction. So changing the habitual course of the mind takes a certain amount of effort. Following along the habitual track is the path of least resistance. And this can actually be used to your advantage. You can build yourself wholesome, useful habits. If you get in the habit of meditating every day at the same time, for example, at first it can be an effort to do. You have to make a special effort. But then it becomes a habit. It becomes just normal, natural. That's just what I do this time of day. And you just do it. And it doesn't even feel like a special effort or a hardship. This can be used in many ways. So the habitual karma is not always a bad thing. It's just a law of nature. This is how the mind works. If you repeated actions or repeated decisions along the same route tend to make it easy to continue that way and dig the rut deeper. The change direction takes an effort. So this is a law of the mind that is useful to know. And the ruts have been laid down in the past, but the traveling either on the path of least resistance or on a new track is work of the present moment. It's always a rule that any work, any effort is done in the present moment. Experience is only in the present moment. Even we have a memory of the past, it's the memory is experienced in the present moment. If we're making plans for the future, we're doing that in the present moment. So living in the present moment doesn't mean being an idiot. In this situation here at Arrow River, in the course of a year, we have to lay in firewood in the fall. So now in the winter, we're burning firewood and we're enjoying the warmth of the work we've done in the fall. Living in the present moment doesn't mean that in the fall you say, well, it's okay now, it's not cold, why should I bother with firewood? No, that's being idiotic, right? The present moment is situated between past and future. And you're making decisions and actions in the present moment with reference to past and future, but it's done in the present moment. It's the present moment in which you're living. And when you can do that, when you can be fully present in the present moment, the mind is much lighter and freer. And it has many benefits. It makes it easier to bear misfortune because whatever occurs in the present moment, whatever painful conditions pertain in the present moment, is only the present moment. If you think of painful experiences, it becomes much worse if you're projecting into the future, how long can I bear this? You can bear anything for one moment. But what makes it seem unbearable to the mind is you're projecting into the future and not easily seeing an end to it. But in the present moment, it can be borne. And on the other side, living in the present moment also enhances the pleasant experiences that one can fully enjoy the moment. Many years ago, when I was a junior monk in Thailand, I was staying at a place called Ajahn Punnadhammo, which is a remote place in mountainous country on the Mekong River, just across from Laos. And there were a group of us staying there for the rainy season, and we were taking turns. Each of us had 2 weeks of solitude where you lived by yourself and didn't come to the group meetings. Went for alms round down the hill to another village that was right on the river. And for those 2 weeks, every morning I would walk down this hill, quite a steep hill to go down to the village, just as the dawn was coming. And there was the Mekong River there, and just opposite was Laos, which is all jungle. And as the sun was coming, there'd be mist rising from the jungle, and you could hear animals and birds, and it was breathtakingly beautiful, I would say. It was an amazing kind of experience every morning just at dawn. And around the third or fourth day, on my way down, I was fully aware of how beautiful the experience was, but I wondered why I felt in myself a certain element of sadness. And I examined that because I was doing a lot of meditation all day at that time, and so my mind naturally went to introspection. I look, where's this sadness coming from? And I realized that my mind was looking at, oh, this is the third day, there's only 10 days left. Only 10 days I'm going to see this, and it's going to be gone. And I realized how self-defeating and foolish that kind of line of thought is. That the present moment was actually extremely pleasant, and I was not allowing myself to fully enjoy it because I was projecting into the future when it would be gone. Whatever experiences we have in this life, or pleasant or painful, are temporary, they're transient, they're momentary. and is of no use or value to try and wish that they were permanent. Nothing can be made permanent. Nothing can be held onto. In Japan, which is a Buddhist culture, one of the big annual events is the blossoming of the cherry blossom trees. It only lasts for like 3 days. Really beautiful blossoms come out and they fall down off the tree and people pick them up. And this is people come from far away to where cherry blossom trees are. And it would be kind of the inclination of a lot of people from Western cultures would be in such a case to try and freeze the moment, photos or videos, or hold the cherry blossom in some kind of a plasticized container so it doesn't fall apart. But to the Japanese, it's part of the aesthetic beauty of the experience is its evanescence, its transience. It's at this moment the cherry blossoms are here, and the next moment they're gone. So this is the aspect of time that we call impermanence, anicca. That nothing persists. Everything is constantly in a state of flux. And a big part of subjective suffering, a kind of unnecessary suffering that beings take on, is fighting that, trying to resist that, wanting things to be stable and permanent and fixed. That's a battle that cannot be won. Things are always going to fall apart and break down and fall away. And being present in the flux, going with the flow, not trying to hold on, but being fully present with the rising and falling of phenomena. That's the way forward. That's the way of bringing the mind towards release. So at each moment, here we are. We're in this transient moment, conditioned by experiences and actions past, experienced fully in the present moment, and immediately as experienced, it fades into the past and becomes the cause and condition for the next and subsequent moments. So I'll stop there.